Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, I'm going to break down a recap of every bottom line you need to know about the next round of stimulus checks and the stimulus package. That way you are completely up to date with all of the bottom lines that we've been researching and talking about for the past weeks. So that way up until today, you've got all of the bottom lines without all of the little boring details in between. So if you've been following along daily, this would be a good refresher for you to connect the dots. And if you haven't been following along, this is going to catch you up as quickly as possible. And quick reminder, this video is sponsored by the links down below for amazing life insurance and 2 free stocks with Webull and some really cool programs. Go check those out. Now I'm gonna go back to what I was doing. First, let me start by making sure that you're already taking advantage of the free money that you can already get from stimulus package number 1. There's zero speculation about stimulus package number 1. So you may as well make sure you're getting that free money. One of the free things that you can do is you can borrow against your 401k retirement account. You can borrow up to $100,000, and as long as you pay it back within 3 years, you don't actually have to pay any penalties, which is phenomenal. It gives you this amazing flexibility with your retirement account. Obviously, check with your CPA, but this could be an interesting way if you've been thinking about buying a house or getting into home ownership. Could be an interesting way to borrow against your 401, penalty-free, and actually get into home ownership. You've got more money that you can draw from now penalty-free. If you're a tenant, now is the best time to negotiate with your landlord on paying back rent or reducing your rent. As soon as we get further and further away from the pandemic and the fear that's happening right now, your ability to negotiate will become much harder. Negotiating is best done when there is fear. Remember that. Always remember that. That is the most important rule I think you can remember when it comes to money in your life. Negotiate when there's blood in the streets, so to speak. And that's not to be insensitive. It's just to make it very clear that the best time to strike a deal with somebody is when somebody else is feeling like there could be more loss coming in the future. So if you're a tenant, hit up your landlord, get a rent reduction, agree to sign a longer lease, or come up with some kind of payback plan that's going to work. Because the last thing you want to do as a tenant is not be paying your rent right now and not doing anything and negotiating with your landlord at all, because once the eviction ban opens up, you might get an eviction letter and then you might end up in court. And you don't want to do that, because if you get a judgment from court, guess what? You end up getting your credit screwed, and it's going to be a lot harder for you to build wealth in the long run. So you have leverage now, but your ability to negotiate becomes less and less the more this pandemic becomes less severe, the more people become more comfortable with it. So you're incentivized to negotiate now. Next, if you are a homeowner and you do not have an emergency fund at all, or you don't have a large emergency fund, I highly encourage you to consider taking mortgage forbearance. This also applies to you if you are a real estate investor. Your credit will likely take a temporary hit. That's because they put a little notation on your credit that your account is in forbearance. I actually have not taken any mortgage forbearance, but because I made a video on mortgage forbearance and I called one of my mortgage companies on a rental property, I have that note on my credit score. Now, I've made all of my payments, and so my credit score dropped about 35 points and has actually since completely bounced back. Now, maybe that's because somehow through their algorithms, they're realizing that I'm actually making my payments, but the point is, if you think you want to build up an emergency fund or build up more of a cushion in case things get weird or your pay gets reduced, or you just want to build up money so you can in the future go buy another property or invest or better your financial position, in my opinion, you ought to consider taking mortgage forbearance. Now, obviously, read up on the terms with your bank, but most banks are now allowing you to move any payments that you missed to the end of your loan term. So check, especially if you have a conventional loan. This is basically free money for you, because most of you probably have between 20 to 30 years left on your mortgage if you have a mortgage. And the reason that's free money is because if you take the money you saved and you invested it, even into like the S&P 500, there's a good chance you might be able to double that money within the next 7 to 15 years, which basically means you're paying off that money you owe in 25 to 30 years now with free money. Think about that. Let that one sink in. All right. But make sure you check with your lenders and read the rules and the options they have, all right? Now, if you're thinking about buying, you want to keep in mind that you're going to have made your payments for 3 months after taking forbearance. So that's kind of how you get back into the buying mode if you did end up taking forbearance. All right, that's out of the way. If you are a business, The EIDL, the EIDL, that is the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan, or that grant program, may open up again this upcoming week. So if you missed out on your ability to apply for that $1,000 grant per employee, which you are your own employee, so if you have a side hustle or a small business, you have at least one employee, that's you. You basically could qualify for this additional $1,000 stimulus check per employee. And plus, they might offer you a 30-year business loan that you have to pay back. You do not have to accept that 30-year business loan. If you take the 30-year business loan, you have to pay that back over 30 years. It's amortized over 30 years, and you should be using that for working capital for your business. If you decide to take the grant, that is free money that you do not have to pay back. Now, if you have not yet applied for a Paycheck Protection Program loan, there's about $130 billion available. It's basically a big pot of free money, and you should go take it. Now, this is not sponsored, but I encourage you to go to Kabbage.com and apply. You do have to attest that your income has been affected by the pandemic. So if legitimately your income has been going up, you probably shouldn't apply. Now, the Treasury Department says you're not going to get audited if you apply for less than a $2 million loan program, but they can also change the rules anytime they want, okay? So do the right thing. Now, last thing on the old thing, and then let's get into the new package. If you're self-employed and your income has gone down and you were laid off and you have not yet applied for unemployment pay, realize you are sitting on a treasure chest of free money. You should be taking this. As long as your current income is under the threshold to where you qualify for state unemployment, you would also qualify for a $600 weekly federal boost, retroactive. So if you haven't taken advantage of the federal pandemic unemployment assistance payments yet, and your state unemployment, and you're self-employed, you're working half as much as you used to, and even with the income you're making now, you'd still qualify within the partial unemployment rules, you should consider applying because you're possibly leaving a bunch of money on the table if you don't. Go to your state's unemployment insurance website to learn more. And you really want to look for pandemic unemployment assistance payments. Now, those are the details you're looking for. That's the $600 boost, well, the federal version of that. So look for the FPUA. All right, moving on to the next round. Number one, Democrats passed an 1,800-page HEROES Act, and that provides more stimulus relief, including another round of $1,200 stimulus checks, plus up to $1,200 for up to 3 dependents. So if you got a stimulus check last time, you'd get another stimulus check, and this time, instead of your dependents getting $500, they would get $1,200 for up to 3 dependents, regardless of their age. Which also means that college students who should have gotten a stimulus check last time but didn't because they were, let's say, over 17 and they were claimed as a dependent, and it's like, seriously, because I was a dependent, I didn't get stimulus? Well, they would now be eligible for a $500 retroactive stimulus check if the HEROES Act passes. The HEROES Act would also extend the $600 federal unemployment assistance payments, which are currently expiring July 31st, all the way to January 31st of 2021 and possibly up through March 31st of 2021, depending on when you apply. Now, this bill also includes tax deductions, money and daycare, for essential workers, relief for homelessness, more money for food stamps, and makes many other changes, including changes to the cannabis industry, prisons, tax benefits, and more. It also provides relief to state and local governments and gives more money to the SBA's EIDL program, which is that grant and loan program we talked about. But before we get carried away with this, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. In this case, those are the Republicans. And that is not me suggesting that I'm taking sides with Republicans or Democrats. I'm just saying that right now, the Senate has received the bill that the Democrats passed, which I just described to you, and they're sitting on it while they wait and see for more economic data. Their current complaints are that Republicans want to see liability protections for businesses like restaurants who open up, so that way they don't get sued if somebody goes and orders food and then leaves with dessert and COVID. No liability for protections for businesses are in the HEROES Act, which is the big 1,800-page bill that Democrats put together. I was personally shocked when I saw that, and maybe Democrats are doing that because they're trying to, they know they're going to have a negotiation with Republicans, so they're not making it easy on them. It's an interesting POV, but it remains to be seen why that was not included the first time around, although we do know that Democrats don't want liability protections for businesses. They want people to have the right to sue. Now, I think that frustrates a lot of people and a lot of businesses, but we'll see how that plays out because it also makes sense. Like, I see both sides, okay? Now, Republicans reply to this and say, hey, look, we're not saying everybody should just have blanket lawsuit immunity. What we're saying is as long as businesses prevent the spread of the coronavirus as much as possible because they do masks or hand sanitizer or they have, safety rules, whatever, they have some sort of procedures, as long as those businesses comply with that, then people should not be able to sue those businesses if they end up getting sick with COVID. Now, if businesses are negligent and it's like, well, we have rules that say we're supposed to use hand sanitizer and wear masks, but then they don't do either of those things, and then a customer gets sick, then the Republicans are saying the customer would still be able to sue that business. Okay, next issue. Republicans believe the Democrats' $3 trillion bill is too expensive. They say it should cost closer to $1 trillion. Either way, those are still massive numbers. Obama's stimulus package in 2009 was about $880 billion, which is less than $1 trillion. Just to give you a little bit of money perspective, these are both massive numbers. Number 3. Republicans are saying that we shouldn't extend unemployment of $600 because it makes people less likely to go to work, because 60 to 80% of people currently receiving the $600 per week in unemployment are actually making more money than they would be making if they were working. And they say that disincentivizes people from going back to work. To which a lot of people say, I'd like to go back to work, but I don't have a job to go back to because either my company is not open or they're not rehiring or whatever. So you should continue unemployment because I can't go back if I wanted to. It's not that I'm being disincentivized. Okay? Number 4, Republicans say we want targeted money is what they say, instead of just sort of what they're calling a Democratic wish list that gives money to everybody more broadly. I think what they're really trying to say is they want a short version of an 1,800-page bill that only gives money to the things they care about. But given that Democrats control the House, even though the Senate is controlled by Republicans and Republicans control the White House, they can't do anything without the House. So they're going to have this sort of balancing act, even though they got 2/3 over here and, Democrats have 1/3. They need to negotiate something because nothing's going to happen unless they all agree to something. All right, that brings up this. The Senate has ideas in the works in terms of how to solve these issues. One of those solutions is a solution that would give people $250 to $450 per week if they went back to work through a certain date. Tentatively, that would be July 31st, but this bill might not get passed by then, so it would be some date. Maybe it would be that January 31st deadline or the March 31st deadline of next year. But basically giving people money to go back to work, a little bit of a boost, a back to work boost. Another option is, hey, if you get off unemployment, maybe you could have a couple extra weeks of unemployment pay while you're going back to work, which is just another version of an unemployment boost. Now, all of these things so far, they don't help people who aren't working, like people on disability or Social Security retirement, which there are a lot of people in America who are retired. So that's very frustrating to a lot of folks. But the good news is Republicans have not bagged on the idea of a $1,200 stimulus check. We haven't heard any indications of Republicans saying, no way, not happening. We've heard Republicans say, oh, we don't like money for the cannabis industry or salt tax deductions changing or money for food stamps. We've heard things like that. $1,200 stimulus checks haven't been mentioned, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Then Trump has some ideas of his own. He has ideas like, hey, let's give people tax benefits so that way they go to restaurants and they go on vacations again. Maybe travel credits if you go on a plane or you go travel within the United States. So that way, think about it. If you travel in the United States, you're actually spreading more money through the economy. You're going to a different area, you're spending in that economy. That makes sense. Okay, I get that. But let's be real, it only makes sense if we actually have money to spend, which again reiterates the $1,200 stimulus check, right? You can't really do tax deductions if people don't have money to spend. Even though you got certain economists like, well, people's savings went up and stuff. Come on, folks. Even if people's savings went up, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And still, most of us don't have money to spend right now because we got laid off or furloughed or our incomes went down because of the Rona. And for those of you who asked in the comments, why do you say Rona, Kevin? It's because when I actually say the word too many times, YouTube ends up categorizing me into some Rona category and it's bad, okay? YouTube. Blame YouTube, not me. Trump is also talking about a payroll tax deduction, which means you would take home between 7.5 to 15% more in your paycheck, depending on how it was structured. Each week, it would probably be closer to 7.5%, but it could be up to 15-ish%. And I'm rounding a little bit here. And you would receive this benefit for all the money that you made up to about $138,000. And then you'd receive a smaller benefit if you made more than that. I'm just roughly looking at how payroll taxes are defined. The details of that'll come later. Trump has also suggested a possible capital gains tax cut, which would help people who sell real estate short-term or who sell options contracts and stocks or who sell stocks in general in the short term, which remember, if you want 2 free stocks, link down below, get 2 free stocks. It's right next to the link for life insurance. So if you want a really good life insurance, link down below. It's inexpensive. It's easy to sign up for. You click the link and you get a quote in as little as 5 minutes and you can sign up for it. Apple Pay for it. With the 2 free stocks, make sure you deposit $100 because if you deposit $100, you get 2 free stocks worth up to $1,400. All right, let's move on. Joe Biden has suggested increasing the capital gains tax. So this is a little bit different from what Trump has suggested. Now, some Democrats have also suggested this idea about a $2,000 per month stimulus plan, or maybe even giving people money retroactively for the last few months as a way to sort of help stimulate the economy. The issue with this is this has not gained any traction other than, co-sponsors of people on the left. It hasn't gained any traction from Republicans, and it hasn't even gained enough attraction or any attention, really, from leaders within the Democrat community in the House to actually even consider including it in their 1,800-page bill. In other words, if the $2,000 per month stimulus check had a chance, it would have probably appeared in the HEROES Act, and it would actually be at the front of discussions now, but it's not. Then we know that the Federal Reserve is also pushing Congress and the White House to do more. Now, when would we potentially see this next stimulus package? Well, it's possible that we'll see a draft or more ideas about this package over the next 30 days. But serious negotiations on the bill likely won't take place until July 21st, which seems crazy and frustrating because right now it's June 13th, which means we're really looking at 5 weeks before we have more real insights on this. And on July 31st, the unemployment boost of $600 expires. So we kind of have this 10-day window where we're expecting to see more negotiations. And of course, some kind of bill that we could actually review and have more real details on. Now, we're going to see right now, we're just trying to put pieces of the puzzle together. Now, there are 2 things that could happen here. Number 1, Republicans can write an entirely new bill. If Republicans write an entirely new bill, this substantially decreases the odds of us getting another $1,200 stimulus check and also hurts the odds of getting $600 per week, aka the $2,400 per month in unemployment pay. I'd say the odds of Republicans writing a new bill, though, is only about 25% likely. I'll explain why in a moment. What's more likely is that the Republicans are going to counter the Democrats on liability protections, possibly money for prisons, salt tax deductions, the cannabis industry, and unemployment insurance payments, the $600 a week, and food stamps. That is, we have this list of maybe 5 to 6 items that Republicans might counter with. They might even then include some things that Trump wants, like the payroll tax deduction and some credits for traveling, and put that in. So really, we have a short list of about 8 things, which we could really put on a Post-it note. I'd say that this is 75% likely. Given the fact that Congress is only going to have about 10 days after their July recess to negotiate and pass something into law, I would say this is, again, most likely, 75% likely, and we're going to have this short list of things that are going to be negotiated, and then we'll probably see the bulk of the HEROES Act get passed. Again, 75% likely, that's my opinion. Now, if Republicans counter, the odds are, in my opinion, that the $1,200 stimulus check is likely to stay because it has not been the subject of debate at all over the past few weeks since the HEROES Act was introduced. And Republicans and Donald Trump have expressed openness to more direct payments. And Trump even went as far as directly mentioning that he would be open to another round of stimulus payments directly to people. We also have Republicans saying they want people to have money and they want to incentivize growth. They want Donald Trump's rocket ship to be huge and be able to take off. And that is, we want enough fuel in the economy to actually be able to lift off in our recovery rather than try to get up and then fall over. Now, a payroll tax deduction and extra tax deductions would obviously be on this list as well. Now, these changes, we could write those things out on a Post-it note, but realistically, it'd probably be putting a little amendment at the end of the 1,800-page bill that would make changes of maybe 2 pages worth of text. That really isn't that difficult to negotiate, and I think that could solve a lot of issues that Democrats and Republicans have. I don't think they're that far apart, especially since both sides have indicated that they want more stimulus in some form. Kevin Hassett went as far as saying it's 100% likely. Now, you might think, well, why don't they just write a 2-page bill then? Like, why wouldn't Republicans just put a 2-page bill together and then push those 2 things through, or the 8 things on that Post-it note? Why don't they just pass that in the form of a 2-page bill then? And that's because, again, the Senate needs the Democrats on board. They can't pass a bill without Democrats. And guess what happens? If the Senate writes a new 2-page bill, Democrats are going to rally for every single person who just got cut out of the HEROES Act, which means firefighters, doctors, nurses, state and local governments, essential workers, people on retirement, people on disability, supposedly who are supposed to get these stimulus checks, people on food stamps. Everyone who benefits from the HEROES Act, that 1,800-page bill, would just instantly get cut out if the Senate writes a new page bill. A narrowed bill would very likely be political suicide for Republicans. It would create such a massive rallying cry for Democrats, especially right before an election, that would help so many people that and it helps so many people who are are within a Republican base, that the Republicans, if they push through a narrower bill, would really be putting their election on this next bill. And it could potentially lead to a Democratic sweep this November, which means Biden's president, Democrats control the House, Democrats control the Senate, and then they push through whatever the heck they want. I'm not taking sides, but I just want to make this very clear. I think the Senate writing their own bill when they need the Democrats is probably a really bad idea. It could happen. We know that Republicans want less money spent on this bill, but they could have less money spent without writing an entirely new bill. We'll see. This is why I believe Republicans are more likely to want to appease all groups and counter on things that they can easily defend countering on. That's why we see so much talk about countering. We shouldn't be incentivizing people to stay home. We should be helping people try to get back to work and making sure the economy is stimulated. Fine. I don't think anybody would blame them for trying to make tweaks. That's a negotiation. That's reasonable. But trashing the other bill, I think, is politically and massively risky. So we'll stick to those 8 things on the Post-it note, right? The liability protections, payroll protections, maybe some deductions, maybe a back to work boost, maybe some form of unemployment. The stimulus checks will be in there, and all of the other things that are within the bill, just modifying some things. This gives everyone a win for the election. Trump gets to say, hey, look, I got the payroll tax cut through and some deductions. Republicans win with liability protections, and Democrats win on the stimulus check and food stamps and other benefits. Heck, Trump and some of the Republicans will also take credit for the stimulus checks and food stamps, and some Democrats will take credit for, well, look how we perfectly crafted the liability protections. Basically, everybody will be able to go back to their districts in September and October and do speeches and rallies about how great they worked on this HEROES bill, and it ended up getting through the way they wanted it. That's the way the message will be crafted. This is why I believe the $1,200 stimulus check is highly likely. However, some form of reduction will very likely come to the $2,400 per month stimulus, which is that $600 per week unemployment pay. There you go. There you have a complete summary of everything that's going on. And if you appreciated this summary, check out the life insurance in the link down below. Get your 2 free stocks with Webull, and check out my amazing programs on the psychology of money and stocks, real estate investing. If you want to be a real estate agent, there's a program for you. And if you own rental property, there is a do-it-yourself rental property management and renovations program as well. Use the coupon code in the link down below, and then you can bundle up after you check out for one of your programs. Thank you so much for watching, folks. We will see you soon. Oh, and if you want some more content, go check out Lauren's channel. It's linked in the description as well. Lauren posted a vlog a couple days ago, and she would appreciate your support. It has to do with when our second child was born and a little oopsies I made. All right, folks, thank you so much again. We'll see you soon.